Here's a question worth sitting with for a second. Money comes in, and money goes right back out, and somewhere in between, none of it ever actually stays long enough to start working for you. You've earned real money before. You just haven't kept any of it around long enough to watch it earn anything of its own. Here's a brutal truth. Most people never let themselves hear. Earning money and multiplying money are two completely different skills. And almost nobody ever teaches you the second one. You can be genuinely good at earning, work hard, get paid fairly, and still die broke, because earning alone was never actually the mechanism that builds real wealth. Multiplying is, and multiplying requires something earning never taught you. Patience with money that isn't in your pocket yet. If that idea just landed a little hard, good, that's usually the sign you've spent years excellent at the first skill and completely untrained in the second one. Stay with me, because what follows is the exact mechanism the wealthy use to turn a single dollar into a permanent, growing worker instead of a single, forgettable transaction. And if even one part of this changes how you see your own money, subscribe right now, because everything else on this channel exists to keep training on the exact skill most people never got taught in the first place. You were told, work hard and save what's left over. That advice isn't wrong. It's simply incomplete. Because saving money and multiplying money are not the same behavior, and most people spend their entire lives excellent at the first one, while remaining completely untrained in the second. Machiavelli understood the difference between holding strength and multiplying it better than almost anyone who's ever written about power. He said a ruler who simply hoarded his resources, protecting them without ever putting them back into motion, would eventually be overtaken by a rival willing to reinvest every gain into producing the next one. Strength that sits still, he believed, quietly weakens relative to strength that keeps compounding. Money works exactly the same way. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. A dollar sitting idle isn't neutral. It's losing ground every single year, quietly, while a dollar put to work, reinvested deliberately, keeps producing more of itself, whether you're paying attention to it or not. Now hold on a second, because this next part actually matters, and I don't want you to scroll past it. If you're the kind of person who's watching this because you're actually serious about building something real, not just clocking into a job for the next 30 years hoping it eventually works out, I want you in the family properly. We just opened up a channel membership, and inside it, we go even deeper than what fits into a normal video. Real top 1% strategies. The kind of thing you'd want if you're genuinely trying to become a builder, a business owner. Someone who leads instead of someone who just clocks in. It's not for everyone, and that's exactly the point. It's for the people in this audience who are actually serious about the next chapter of their life. If that's you, there's a join button right below this video. Come build with us. Now, back to the money. I didn't understand this from a finance book. I understood it from watching my own hard-earned money disappear year after year, no matter how much of it I actually managed to bring in. There was a period where I genuinely believed the goal was simply earning more. That, if the number coming in kept growing, everything else would eventually sort itself out on its own. It never did. The number coming in grew. The number staying around to actually work for me stayed almost exactly the same, because I was spending my energy entirely on the first skill, and none of it on the second. It wasn't until I started tracking, honestly, how much of my money was actually still working for me a year after I earned it, that the real problem became impossible to ignore. Almost none of it was. It had all been spent once, and then it was simply gone, the same as it would have been for anyone earning half what I was. It wasn't until I deliberately started treating a portion of every dollar as something to be reinvested rather than spent that anything in my actual financial position began to change. That's when Machiavelli's warning about strength that sits still stopped being an old line about kingdoms and became the exact explanation for why years of hard work had produced almost nothing lasting. And if that idea stings a little right now, good. Because the sting usually means a real habit just became visible enough to finally change. History proves this pattern relentlessly. Take Levi Strauss. He didn't strike it rich overnight. He built a modest dry goods business, and the moment his sturdy work pants started selling well, he faced the same choice every business owner eventually faces. Spend the profit, or put it straight back into the business. He chose reinvestment, consistently, expanding manufacturing capacity, improving the product, and funding growth directly from the profits the business itself was already generating, rather than treating each year's earnings as a reward to be spent once the bills were covered. That discipline, treating profit as fuel for the next stage, rather than a reward for the last one, is a significant part of why his name is still stitched into a product sold around the world today. He understood something most people never grasp. Money spent once produces exactly one result, and then it's gone. Money reinvested keeps producing new results again and again, long after the original dollar has technically disappeared into something larger. That's the real subject of this video, not another lecture about budgeting or cutting coffee. This is the exact mechanism, 10 specific moves. The wealthy used to turn ordinary money into a permanent compounding machine, using nothing more exotic than the money you're already earning right now. There are 10 of them. Let's go through every one. Move 1. They treat every dollar as a worker, not a reward. Most people mentally categorize money the moment it arrives as either an obligation to be paid or a reward to be enjoyed, with almost nothing left over in a third category: capital to be put to work. Machiavelli believed that a wise ruler evaluated every resource by what it could produce next, rather than by how satisfying it would feel to simply consume it immediately. Here's what reward thinking looks like. Someone earns money and mentally files it as something they've earned the right to spend, treating the entire amount as personal reward, rather than asking what portion could instead be put to work producing more. Here's what worker thinking looks like instead. Someone deliberately separates a portion of every dollar earned, treating that portion specifically as capital, whose job is to go produce more capital before the remainder is ever considered available to spend or enjoy. A dollar treated purely as reward disappears the moment it's spent. A dollar treated as a worker keeps showing up to work long after the reward version would have already been forgotten. This shift doesn't require treating every dollar this way, only a specific, deliberate portion of each one. Even a modest percentage, consistently redirected toward capital rather than reward, begins to change the entire trajectory over time. Simply because that portion, unlike the rest, never actually stops working once it's been put in motion. Now pause for a second. Think about the last meaningful amount of money that came in, and what percentage of it actually went to work instead of simply being spent. Put it into a word or two in your mind, because that percentage, however small right now, is the exact lever this entire video is about to help you pull. Move 2. They prioritize reinvestment over consumption during the early growth stage. There's a specific costly instinct that shows up the moment money starts flowing more freely than it used to. The urge to finally enjoy it, right when reinvestment would actually matter most. Machiavelli believed that the earliest stage of building strength required the most discipline, precisely because early gains, reinvested aggressively, compounded into far more than the same gains spent immediately ever could. Here's what early consumption looks like. Someone's income improves, and spending rises to match it almost immediately, celebrating the improvement in real time, rather than using that exact window to build a compounding foundation, while the habit of doing without is still fresh. Here's what early reinvestment looks like instead. Someone deliberately keeps spending flat while income rises, redirecting the entire gap into reinvestment during exactly the stage when that discipline compounds the most, before lifestyle has fully expanded to consume it. The earliest reinvested dollars are worth more than any dollar reinvested later, simply because they have more years ahead of them to keep compounding. This is precisely why the discomfort of this stage is worth tolerating deliberately rather than avoiding. A short period of restrained spending early produces a disproportionately large effect later, not because the amount itself was large, but because it had the maximum number of years available to keep growing before it was ever needed for anything else. Move 3. They understand compounding needs time more than genius. Most people assume multiplying money requires some rare insight, a brilliant investment, a lucky break, when in reality, the single most powerful variable in the entire process is simply how many years a dollar has been left alone to keep growing. Machiavelli believed that patience sustained over years produced results that clever, short-term maneuvering rarely could, because time itself did work, that no single decision, however brilliant, was capable of doing alone. Here's what genius seeking looks like. Someone delays putting money to work at all, searching instead for the perfect, brilliant opportunity that will multiply it quickly, treating ordinary, unremarkable growth as not worth starting yet. Here's what time-respecting looks like instead. Someone starts putting money to work immediately, in an ordinary, unremarkable way, understanding that the extra years of compounding this choice produces will outperform almost any later, more clever decision that arrives after those years have already been lost. A brilliant decision made late usually loses to an ordinary decision made early, simply because time was the actual engine the entire time, not cleverness. This is worth internalizing precisely because it removes a common excuse for inaction, waiting for enough knowledge, enough confidence, or the perfect opportunity feels responsible in the moment. But it quietly costs exactly the resource that mattered most. An unremarkable start today outperforms a brilliant start 5 years from now, almost every single time the math is actually run. Now pause again. Think about how many years your money has actually spent working, compared to how many years it's spent simply waiting for the right decision. 1 or 2 words. That's enough. Because every year spent waiting for perfect is a year of compounding that no future decision, however smart, can ever fully recover. Move 4. They buy assets that produce cash flow, not just assets that hopefully appreciate. There's a meaningful difference between an asset that simply might be worth more someday, and one that actively produces income right now. And most people's understanding of investing skews heavily toward the first category. Machiavelli valued strength that actively produced ongoing advantage over strength that merely sat unchanged, hoping circumstances would eventually favor it. Here's what appreciation-only thinking looks like. Someone puts money into assets whose only real path to reward is eventually being worth more than they paid, producing nothing usable in the meantime, and offering no return at all unless the asset is eventually sold at the right moment. Here's what cash flow thinking looks like instead. Someone prioritizes assets that actively generate usable income along the way. Dividends, interest, rental income, allowing that income to be reinvested immediately, rather than waiting years for value to hopefully increase before anything can be used. An asset that only might grow someday asks you to wait and hope. an asset that pays you along the way, gives you fuel to reinvest immediately, compounding on top of itself while you wait. This doesn't mean appreciating assets have no place at all. It means recognizing that cash-flowing assets do something appreciation-only assets structurally cannot. They generate usable capital during the holding period itself, capital that can immediately be redirected into acquiring even more, rather than sitting locked up until a distant, uncertain sale. Move 5. They use borrowed capital carefully to multiply returns, never to fund lifestyle. Debt used one way accelerates compounding significantly. Debt used the other way quietly drains it for years. Most people never separate the two, treating all borrowing as roughly the same category of decision. Machiavelli believed that borrowed strength, used wisely to seize a genuine advantage, could multiply a ruler's position considerably, while the same borrowed strength, spent carelessly, simply became a weakness, waiting to be exploited later. Here's what lifestyle debt looks like. Someone borrows to fund consumption, a car, a vacation, a lifestyle upgrade, none of which produces any income of its own, meaning the debt simply drains future income with nothing productive generated in exchange. Here's what leverage for growth looks like instead. Someone borrows specifically to acquire an asset or opportunity that produces more return than the cost of the borrowed capital itself, using debt as a genuine multiplier rather than a way to consume ahead of actually earning it. Debt that funds consumption is a permanent leak. Debt that funds a genuinely productive asset can be one of the fastest multipliers available, provided the return on it genuinely exceeds its cost. Move 6. They reinvest profits back into the same working system before diversifying too early. There's a specific mistake many people make the moment something starts working, immediately spreading the resulting profit into several new, unrelated directions, before the original working system has been fully built out. Machiavelli believed in reinforcing genuine strength where it already existed, before expanding into new, untested territory. Understanding that a partially built strength, abandoned too early for something new, rarely reached its full potential. Here's what premature diversification looks like. Someone's first working system starts generating real returns, and the profit gets immediately scattered across several new, unrelated ventures, none of which received the concentrated reinvestment that made the original system work in the first place. Here's what focused reinvestment looks like instead. Someone continues reinvesting profit directly back into the system that's already proven itself, building it out fully before ever spreading resources into something new and unproven. A proven system, reinvested into fully, compounds faster than the same resources scattered thin across several unproven ones. This isn't a permanent prohibition on ever diversifying. It's a sequencing rule. Diversification eventually becomes wise, especially once a system has genuinely matured and its returns have started to plateau. The mistake isn't diversifying eventually. It's diversifying prematurely, before the original system has been given the chance to fully prove out what it was actually capable of producing. Move 7. They protect the compounding machine from interruption. Compounding is fragile in one specific way. It requires staying largely undisturbed over long stretches of time, and a single significant withdrawal, made at the wrong moment, can undo years of patient growth almost instantly. Machiavelli believed that a ruler's greatest strength, carefully built over years, could be severely weakened by a single, careless decision made under pressure, and that protecting that strength required real discipline precisely at the moments when it felt least urgent. Here's what interrupting the machine looks like. Someone builds real, compounding growth over several years. And then, faced with a tempting purchase or a moment of financial pressure, withdraws a significant chunk of it, unaware of how many future years of compounding that single withdrawal actually erased. Here's what protecting it looks like instead. Someone treats the compounding capital as functionally untouchable, maintaining a completely separate emergency reserve, specifically so the compounding machine itself is never the first place pressure gets relieved from. A withdrawal made today doesn't just cost today's balance. It costs every single year of compounding that money would have produced between now and whenever it was actually needed. Now pause once more. Think about whether your own growing capital currently has a genuine separation from your everyday spending, or whether it's one tempting moment away from being interrupted. One word is enough, because that separation, built deliberately, is often the single thing standing between real compounding and a cycle that keeps quietly resetting itself. Move 8. They automate reinvestment, so growth doesn't depend on willpower. Most people's reinvestment habit relies entirely on remembering to do it. Manually, every single time money becomes available, a system that reliably breaks down the moment life gets busy or motivation dips. Machiavelli trusted structure over the changing moods of any single person, understanding that a system designed to function without requiring constant willpower would consistently outperform one that depended on remembering and feeling motivated every time. Here's what manual reinvestment looks like. Someone intends to reinvest a portion of every payment, but relies on remembering and deciding to do it each time, a habit that quietly erodes the moment other priorities, or simple forgetfulness, get in the way. Here's what automated reinvestment looks like instead. Someone sets up an automatic transfer or contribution the moment income arrives, removing the need for willpower or memory entirely, so the reinvestment happens reliably, whether or not that particular week feels disciplined. A reinvestment habit that depends on willpower works exactly as often as willpower shows up. An automated one works every single time, regardless. The specific mechanism matters less than the principle behind it. A standing instruction, set once, that moves a fixed amount or percentage the moment income arrives, removes the decision entirely from the equation. There's no daily choice left to make, which means there's no daily opportunity for the habit to quietly slip. Move 9. They measure success by the growth rate of their capital, not by income alone. Most people track their financial progress almost entirely through income, a rising salary, a bigger paycheck, without ever tracking the actual growth rate of the capital that income is supposed to be building underneath it. Machiavelli judged a ruler's true position, not by how much passed through his hands in a given year, but by how much lasting strength had actually accumulated as a result. Here's what income-only tracking looks like. Someone measures financial progress purely by comparing this year's income to last year's, feeling a sense of progress even when the actual capital working on their behalf has barely grown at all. Here's what capital growth tracking looks like instead. Someone tracks, specifically, how much their actual working capital has grown year over year, treating that number, not the income number, as the real scoreboard for whether they're actually getting wealthier. Rising income without rising capital is simply a bigger number passing through the same leaking system. Rising capital is the only number that actually reflects whether the multiplying machine is working. A simple habit makes this visible. Checking the actual growing capital number on a fixed schedule, monthly or quarterly, separately from checking income at all. Watching that specific number move or fail to move over time reveals the truth about the underlying system far more honestly than a rising paycheck ever could on its own. Move 10. They understand that once $1 is working, the entire goal is simply adding more workers, not reinventing the system. This is the move that ties every other one together, and it's the reason this entire video exists. Every move we've covered, treating dollars as workers, prioritizing early reinvestment, respecting time over genius, choosing cash-flowing assets, using leverage carefully, reinvesting into proven systems, protecting the compounding machine, automating the habit, tracking capital growth. They all share the same underlying truth. Once a system for turning money into more money actually exists and works, the entire remaining task is simple, even if it isn't easy. Keep adding more capital to a machine that already runs, rather than constantly searching for a completely different one. Machiavelli never believed lasting strength came from constantly reinventing strategy. He believed it came from identifying what genuinely worked, and then applying it with discipline, repeatedly, for far longer than most rivals had the patience to sustain. Here's what this looks like in real life. You finish this video. You already know right now which of these 10 moves is most obviously missing from how you currently treat your own money. Not vaguely. Specifically, you already have one in mind. The version of you who actually turns money into more money doesn't wait for a bigger paycheck before starting this system. They start today with whatever amount is currently available, treating it as the first worker in a machine that only needs to be fed consistently from here forward. The version of you who stays stuck, closes this video, feels briefly inspired, and spends the next dollar exactly the way they've always spent every dollar before it. The only real difference between those two people was never how much either of them earned. It was whether their money ever actually started working, or simply kept passing through. Put even $1 to work this week, using even one of these 10 moves, and everything else on this list becomes far easier to build on top of. Now, don't think about building some enormous fortune overnight. Think about the $1 sitting in front of you right now, the one that's about to get spent exactly the way every dollar before it was spent. Not analyzing it further, not waiting for a bigger amount to start with, just naming it. One word. That's the whole exercise, because that word is the first worker in a machine that, fed consistently, keeps producing long after you've stopped thinking about it at all. Wealth was never reserved for people who simply earned the most money. It was reserved for people who stopped letting their money pass through and started putting it to work instead. None of the 10 moves on this list require a large starting amount, a rare opportunity, or a level of income most people don't currently have. The mechanism works identically on a modest sum as it does on a large one. What actually separates the two outcomes over a decade was never the size of the first dollar put to work. It was simply whether that dollar, and everyone after it, was ever actually asked to work at all. If this shifted the way you see your own money, even slightly, don't stop here, because what you've heard in this video is only the surface. There are deeper layers to compounding, leverage, and long-term wealth building that simply can't be covered fully in a single video. Not because they don't exist, but because most people aren't ready to put their money to work this deliberately yet. Two people earning the exact same income over the exact same 10 years can end up in completely different financial positions. And the gap was never about how much either of them brought in. It was about how many of those dollars were ever actually put to work, instead of simply passing through on their way to somewhere they'd never be seen again. If you're not one of them, then subscribe, because every video here is built to sharpen exactly this skill. Turn what you already earn into a machine that keeps growing on its own and separate you from everyone still watching their money pass through without ever putting it to work. No fluff, no noise, just strategy. Most people will watch this and spend the next dollar exactly like the last one tomorrow. A few will close this video and put theirs to work within the hour. Decide which one you are.